I often feel that my only real responsibility, my only real role when I come before groups such as you all is simply to remind us all of what we have been given. The amazing spiritual treasure that we have been given, and then together to help each other kindle our enthusiasm to embrace and to apply and to plumb the depths of that spiritual treasure. Because those truths and techniques that Guruji is referring to, when he says, India, more than any other nation, has kept alive the highest truth and methods of God realization, and those truths and techniques are being given worldwide for the first time in this modern era to all of you, to all who follow this lineage of gurus. And those truths and techniques, my dear ones, they are a spiritual dynamo. They are a powerhouse that will infuse every aspect of our lives with joy, with success, with peace. And maybe most important, with a sense of deep, deep inner reassurance that we are living according to the divine plan and fulfilling the purpose for which we are here on earth. So many people feel adrift in modern life simply because they have lost sight or they never had a sense of what the purpose for which they are here on earth. What is the purpose of life? Again and again, Guruji tells us the goal of life is self-realization. To regain the consciousness of our immortal self, the soul, one with the infinite spirit, our true being, our true immortal and essential self. And that essential being is divine. That is the purpose of life, to have that realization and gradually have it unfold in our lives into a continuous awareness, a continuous fountain, a continuous wellspring from which we can draw in real time what we need to maintain our dynamic and living connection with the divine. Guruji gave such a beautiful and powerful description of what our real self is, what a soul is. He says, souls are radiating rays of spirit, one with the eternal. Think about that. Think about that. There's that infinite, eternal, all-perfect receptacle and bestower of infinite joy, infinite love, infinite power. And out of that spirit, the souls of each one of us is a radiating ray. We can never be separated. We can never be apart from that being. We can never be away from, unless we permit, we can never be away from that source of infinite beauty, infinite ability, infinite unconditional love. When we know ourselves in that way, as Guruji is doing his best to teach us and holding us by the hand as we advance step by step, month by month, year after year in the practice of meditation, as we advance toward that consciousness, then we know even in our outer life, even in the material world, we have that connection. We have that dynamic connection with our divine source. I want to go into some of the principles and some of the techniques and insights that Guruji gave for achieving this. You know, earlier, a little while ago, I was talking about making ourselves living links with the living power, the divine power of India's Sanatana Dharma, and with the enlightened gurus of modern times who guide our path. Here's one way in which we can become that kind of link. I want you just to think, just follow along with this analogy for a while. I think you'll find it helpful and useful. I certainly have. You know, one kind of living link that we see all around us on earth is in the plant kingdom. Plants and trees and flowers. They are living links between the sunlight, and life on earth. You know that. That's basic material science. And how do they do that? They do that by a process that we know as photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. In other words, taking the light of the sun and converting that into chemical energy to sustain themselves. So, similarly, one aspect of each of us being a living link is to practice what we could call spiritual photosynthesis, or what we might call yoga synthesis. We'll get back to that in a minute, but think about what that humble little flower, that humble little plant does. It takes the visible light of the sun and, as I said, converts it into energy that feeds itself, and then by extension feeds the entire animal kingdom and the human race as well. When you think about this, how astoundingly miraculous is this method by which the Divine Mother continuously feeds and nourishes all of her children through her light. But as miraculous as that is, even more, as human beings, we are equipped to perform an even greater miracle. We can call it the miracle of Brahma synthesis. Just as photosynthesis converts light into chemical energy to nourish the plant, devotees of this path can perform a different kind, yoga synthesis or Brahma synthesis, to convert the grace and power of God into right action, to nourish the soul and the entire world in which we live. To convert the grace and power of God into right action, to nourish the soul and the entire world in which it lives. Again, to follow the analogy, just as a plant performs that process of photosynthesis by turning its leaves and its flowers toward the sun, so we perform that spiritual photosynthesis by turning our consciousness wholeheartedly, continuously, enthusiastically toward God. In a very simple way, that is the essence of the path that our Guru has brought to us. That is the essence of the techniques that he has brought to us, to enable us to continually turn our consciousness to receive that grace and power and spiritual enlightenment from God. We find this explained to us in perfect clarity, in all the detail and ease of practice in those lessons that Guruji has made for us, especially in the meditation techniques of the Kriya Yoga science. You following along the analogy with again, just take it a little further, that we see how plants and flowers, they take light and transform it into all kinds of different substances, benefits, not only for themselves, but for the environment in which they live. Some plants, through that process, convert the light into nutritional qualities. Some create medicinal or healing properties. Some produce beauty. Some produce fragrance. Some produce other kinds of materials for useful purposes. All of these are a result of that process of photosynthesis, of that receiving and converting of light. Well, my dears, the yogis, all of you, all of us, we can use spiritual photosynthesis in the same way to produce an abundance and diversity of soul qualities that benefit ourselves and also the environment, the world in which we live. And again, this is one of the how to live arts in the YSS SRF lessons, especially those that impart the techniques of the Kriya Yoga science. This idea of receiving the light, receiving the grace, receiving the power of God, this is throughout the lessons, throughout the teachings of our Guru. He didn't use this word of spiritual photosynthesis, but he gave so many beautiful word pictures or word illustrations that show us how to do this. Let's do one together. Let's practice this together. You all have heard this before from Whispers from Eternity, but this is an affirmation and a prayer that each of us can use to experience and to understand how we maintain that divine connection and what it means for our personal lives and for the world in which we live. So close your eyes and just listen as I read this beautiful invocation of Guruji to describe this process that we're discussing. Guruji says in his prayer at dawn and the opening of lotus buds, my soul flower softly unfolds to receive thy light. Each petal is bathed in rays of bliss. The early breezes waft the perfume of thy presence. Here he's describing our morning meditation, of course. Then he prays, bless me, that with thee spreading aurora, I spread to all men thy message of love. With the awakening day, may I awaken countless souls with my own and bring them to thee. In these kinds of beautiful word pictures, Guruji makes it so vivid for us, doesn't he? He makes it so easy to picture how we can be those living links. And just like the humble plant, the beautiful flowers, the trees, and other plant life that we see around us are constantly, naturally being that link between sunlight and life on earth, so we, as we awaken it through Kriya Yoga, as we awaken our consciousness of our spiritual nature, we can be those living links between the grace and power of God, to receive it, to convert it into soul qualities, as Guruji says, that will awaken countless souls with my own and bring them to thee. One time Guruji said, again, pertinent to this idea of what the role of spirituality, what the role of the Kriya Yogi, the follower of the YSS and SRF path is in today's world. That path that's 100% focused, 100% grounded on establishing that living connection with the divine source, and then maintaining it as we conduct our lives in the world through meditation, through that connection with the divine. So Guruji tells us in that connection, he says, as soon as you feel God in your heart, you will contribute to world civilization as no king or politician has ever done before. As soon as you feel God in your heart, you will contribute to world civilization as no king or politician has ever done before. So remember what Guruji has given us throughout his teachings, particularly in the lessons, particularly in the techniques of meditation, is this conscious power to receive the grace of God and to use that process of spiritual photosynthesis, we might say, to produce an abundance of soul qualities for our own benefit and also for the benefit of the environment and the world in which we live.